Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about 10 things I like about 10 bad Doctor Who stories. So, stories that I personally don't care for, that I think aren't very good stories, but still have something in them that I like. Something in them that, while it doesn't redeem them, it helps a little. There's a little redemption in there, if not full redemption. Now, these aren't necessarily stories that the fandom thinks positively or negatively about, although in a lot of cases it runs the same, but just stories that I personally don't care for my own personal reasons. Again, a lot of this is the same that the fandom thinks. Some of them not so much. Some stories you either love or hate. Number one on the list is Love and Monsters. I do not get into Love and Monsters. I know some people think it's underrated. I don't. I just never got into the story. Plus, the guy playing the lead, I just don't care for him. The one playing his girlfriend, she's all right. But the guy playing the lead, I never cared for. But it has ELO in it. I love ELO. I love the Electric Light Orchestra. They're one of my favorite bands. They have a lot of songs I like. I have their greatest hits. I have the Xanadu soundtrack. So that is one thing about this episode. Now, I'm not going to watch this episode for the ELO because, again, I have their greatest hits 2 CD set and the Xanadu soundtrack. I can go listen to ELO anytime I want. But if for some reason I've been kidnapped by somebody and their way of torturing me is we're going to put on Love and Monsters, while I'm screaming in fear and torture and pain, at least I can get a little enjoyment out of it when the ELO segments come on. So I do like that aspect of it. On the next one is the Web Planet. I do think the Web Planet's pretty bad. Now, it has some positives. I mean, it has my net opinion of it is that it's pretty bad. Now, some positives. Love the ambition behind this story. I've talked about this before on the channel. Anytime I talk about the Web Planet, I talk about how much respect I have for the ambition behind this story and the ambition that went into creating this story. It will always have my respect for that. To try to do that with the budget they had to work with, I commend that. And in some respects, they managed to pull it off. Some of the sets look really good. I really do like some of the sets a lot. I like the Zarbi outfits. The Menoptera outfits are all right. They're not bad. They're creative. The performances of the Menoptera are interesting. But unfortunately, some of the sets look bad. The whole Vaseline on the camera thing, which is supposed to give it an otherworldly look, instead just gives it a Vaseline on the camera look. The noise the Zarbis make get progressively more annoying throughout this story. I think the story's biggest flaw is it's too long. I think as a 4-parter, you could have salvaged this and made it decent. I think it's 6 parts. It just runs a little long in the tooth. Plus, I find the set for the final villain fight, the supposed spider thing, not very good, not very threatening. Maybe for the time, 1964, I could see that working to startle children, but it doesn't hold up today, and trying to watch it today. My net opinion of the story is bad, but there's definitely some good stuff going on in it. Number 3 on the list, sticking with the Hartnell era, is The Chase. I don't get into The Chase. The Chase is interesting because, there is no real consensus from the fandom. You have the group of people that like The Chase. You have the group of people that don't like The Chase. I have met several of both. I know Lee Binding is a huge fan of The Chase, and we all know he's a big Doctor Who fan. But I never got into The Chase. But it has very good book-ending episodes. I love episode 1. I love episode 6. They're actually really good. I love parts of episode, I think it's 3, when Peter Purvis is playing that other character on the Empire State Building. Love that scene. Like some of the stuff going on with the mechanoids in part 5. It's just part 2 doesn't do a lot for me. The second half of part 3 on the Mary Celeste does nothing for me. Episode 4 could be the worst single episode in all of classic Doctor Who. I don't get into it at all. And then parts of part 5 don't work for me. It's a real mixed bag for me. My net opinion of it is that it's not very good. But there's definitely good going on in it, especially those bookending episodes. Number 4 is Orphan 55. I did a video one time on Orphan 55 called The Good, the Bad, and the Stupid. I don't think Orphan 55 overall is a good episode. Benny! Where's my Benny? And I'm over here going, where's my shotgun? But there is some good going on in Orphan 55. I've said anytime I talk about Orphan 55, I always give it some praise because of the Earth reveal, the very Beneath the Planet of the Apes Earth reveal, the reveal that they've been on Earth the whole time. Because as tropey as that is, I didn't see it coming. Maybe I should have seen it coming. But it did such a good job with everything else going on that it never occurred to me they were on Earth. So I always give some props to the fact they managed to make that reveal actually a twist reveal. They get props for that. I enjoy the green-haired kid. He's really smart. I kind of like the green-haired kid. I like the bit with Trixie Belle and her mom and that reveal when it's like, Trixie Belle? Oh, yeah. And she named me Trixie Belle. For some reason, I do like that. That's funny to me. The doctor being oblivious. I like when Ryan and the Trixie Belle girl are flirting when they're in the kind of assault vehicle, whatever it is, and they're kind of having a moment. And the doctor just kind of butts in the middle of the moment. And everybody else knows they're having a moment, but not the doctor, because of course the doctor. It's such a doctor thing for the doctor to be oblivious to that. Maybe not every doctor, but a lot of the doctors to be oblivious to that and just kind of butt in. It feels like I really like that moment. I really enjoy that moment. And then, let me check my notes. Oh, I did like the callback to the second Doctor when 13's like, when I say run, run, run. Yeah, I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, 13, your 2 is showing. So it was a nice callback to the second Doctor era. So there's a few things in this episode that make it watchable. I would call Orphan 55 watchable. It has a lot of bad in it, especially that speech at the end. Whoa, mother of God. But it's watchable. Next on the list is Listen. I'm not a big fan of Listen. I know Listen's another one, kind of like The Chase, where you have that group of people who like it, that group of people who don't. I don't really get into it, but I do think it has a good atmosphere to it. And I think the cinematography is good. It's shot really well. It has this creepy look to it. Like there's always something just out of view or just out of camera range, stalking some unknown presence, which of course is the point of the story. Listen is actually a pretty good story all the way up until the ending craps all over it. Like I remember the first time I watched Listen, which may be the only time I've ever watched Listen. I can't remember if I've watched Listen once or twice. But I remember liking it all the way to the ending and hating the ending. I think this is where Clara first started to become really annoying to me. When the doctor really started to become the assistant and Clara kind of became the doctor here at the end. I hated that. Yeah, it has such a crap ending, it just kind of ruins the story. But up to that, everything they were doing I liked. And again, it has a good atmosphere, good feel to it, good tension. All the way up to that ending, which is eye-rolling. And then I thought the cinematography of the whole episode was done really well. Fear Her. Fear Her is bad. There's no bones about it. There's not even much good about Fear Her. I do like that one scene, though, when Rose and Ten are in the TARDIS talking. And she mentions about parenting, and the doctor's like, I was a father once. And she's like, what? And he just kind of moves on to the next thing. But the way he says that, I was a father once when he was working, although Russell T. Davies is kind of retconning that, apparently, with 15, that he hasn't had his granddaughter. But that was a really nice moment in what I consider to be one of Modern Who's worst episodes. So by default, one of the worst episodes overall there. But it was a nice little moment, and I liked the way it was performed by David and Billy. Next on the list is The Dominators. The Dominators is probably my least favorite Troughton, although I will admit trying to watch the Recon of Space Pirates is harder. But The Dominators has a few things going for it I like. One, Patrick Troughton is great in it. I mean, the number one selling point of this story is Patrick Troughton. He's hilarious in scenes. I love how he's playing dumb and how he even flat out tells Jamie that, an enemy that's thought to be unintelligent is thought to be less dangerous, or whatever he says there to that effect. And then the bit when he gets caught, we thought we told you to stay away from the quarks. Well, I do. Every time I see one, I run away. But they're everywhere. What am I supposed to do? I love that whole bit. Trouton is definitely the main selling point. I like Frasier in this. Wendy's fine. She doesn't get enough to do, but she's fine. But Frasier is good in this. I like some of the guest cast. The one guy who's native to the planet that's kind of running around with Frasier a bit. I like him. And then one of the Dominators, both the Dominators are fine. I mean, they have that kind of static way of talking, especially at the beginning. But once you kind of adjust to it, they're fine. But especially one of them, the one that's kind of the leader one, the one that's in charge, I like him. I don't know why. Just once I get used to how they talk and act, I really found myself liking him. And I like when he kills the one guy in the city. And it's like you're supposed to feel bad because he killed the one guy. And I'm sitting here like, okay, he gave that guy like 50 chances. Like, the Dominator kept telling the guy, knock it off or I will kill you. Stop doing that or I will kill you. It's like, he gives him so many chances, and the guy who's supposed to be the pacifist keeps egging him on, and so the Dominator kills him. Like, dude, come on. So yeah, there's some positives to this. Also, the scene at the beginning, when the guest characters that we meet right at the beginning get killed, that's a pretty graphic little effect, the way they die, the way they get killed at the beginning. I thought that was a pretty impressive effect. Next on the list is Mind Warp. I am not a fan of Mind Warp, my least favorite Colin story, but it has a couple things going for it. One, Brian Blessed. It's nice to see Brian Blessed in Doctor Who. Two, it's great to have Seal back. I like Seal as a character. The guy who plays Seal is so good. He is just great. He's one of the standouts of Colin's era. So it's great to see him back. And then some of the effects look good, like when they're walking around outside the planet and it has like that green sky and stuff. That's an impressive looking effect. So while I'm not a big fan of the story, especially its ending, thank God that got retconned, definitely has some positives to it. The next one on the list is The Angels Take Manhattan. Amy and Rory's final story. I don't care for this one. It's got some dumb stuff going on in it. The Statue of Liberty being an angel. God help me. But it's got a couple things I like. One, again, I like the way this one is shot. It has some some of the cinematography in it, I think, looks really good. And I love the scene when the one guy gets his comeuppance, the one that had the angel chained up in the house. That scene when he gets knocked down. And then when he gets back up, he notices the doors are open, and everywhere he looks, there's an angel coming after him. And he's... I do like that. I do like that sequence. That's a really cool sequence. And I enjoyed that a lot. I think there's one or two other little things I'm forgetting about that one I like. But it does have a couple, one or two other good points to it I enjoyed. And last on the list is Rosa. I'm not a big fan of Rosa. I have a lot of problems with it. I don't think it's necessarily objectively a bad episode. But as someone who was born and raised and lived my entire life in the South of America, I have some issues with how it does some of the depictions of it. It depicts a lot of the people of the time in this very caricaturish, cartoonish manner that I think is a very insulting way to depict an entire group of people. Matter of fact, if it had been done with anyone else, it would probably be labeled racist. I have huge problems with that, being someone who's born and raised here. Problems that naturally someone who was born and raised in Britain, England, wouldn't have with it, because they wouldn't understand just how wrong this episode gets things in so many ways. So that's just a personal problem I have with this episode. It makes it very hard for me to go back and rewatch this episode, because the whole time I'm just kind of grinding my teeth. That being said, there are definitely some positives to this episode. I do love the actress playing Rosa Parks. She is fantastic in the role. I actually like how she does the accent in it. She is phenomenal. She gets top marks for this. I love the scene when Ryan is talking with Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., and he is just in awe. I love the actor who plays Ryan does such a good job portraying that awe. You know, he's sitting here having a conversation with these two legends that he has to have so much respect for. And he's like, hold on, Martin Luther King, I'm talking to Rosa Parks. And just that awe in his voice and to be living in that moment. That's a really well done scene, which I really enjoyed. And then the guy playing the villain does a good job. I know there have been some people on the internet who are a little frustrated that they cast a white guy as a villain, but it makes sense for the white guy to be a villain. It has to be a white guy. It wouldn't make nearly as much sense if it wasn't a white guy the villain. I think that's perfect the way they did that. Yes, it's absolutely should be a white guy. That makes sense. And then the actor playing it sells the role. And I like some of the confrontations between him and 13, like when she tricks him into blasting the soup case. That's really, really clever of her. They have some good interactions. The guy playing the bus driver plays that part really well because it does its job, I think, of making you uncomfortable. It's like the actor is playing the part well, and I almost feel uncomfortable complimenting him on it because he's playing the part so well. Now, I mentioned before that I have issues with this story because of the caricaturish, cartoonish nature that some of the characters are portrayed as. And I do, but I firmly believe that the bus driver might have been like that. I don't historically know. But I could firmly believe that one person like the bus driver could be like that. What I can't believe is that literally every single person they encounter could be like that, because that's just not true. Would either be that form of racist or would just kind of be the duck their head down, doesn't want to get involved type, because that's just, it wasn't true. It simply wasn't how things were. As someone who has a lot of family who grew up in that time in that area. And that's my problem. The bus driver, though, I actually think the fact that it makes you uncomfortable listening to him talk, I feel like the story and the actor are doing their job well, that it makes you that kind of uncomfortable. So while I have my problems with this story, and it's really hard for me to watch it, it truly is. There are definitely positives about it, and I can certainly see why people like it. If I wasn't born and raised here and had a far better understanding than some people do of that time, I could certainly understand why people in the UK like this episode, or people who live in the United States up north might like this episode. Because this definitely has its positives, but it definitely just has certain things that rub me the wrong way. And I'm sure a lot of you have that. You might have an episode that has things you like about it, but there's just something about it that rubs you wrong, that makes it not work for you. So yeah, that's 10 things I like in bad Doctor Who episodes. Again, not necessarily what the fandom consider bad episodes, but episodes that are not good episodes for me. That's 10 things I still like about those episodes and think that they did well. So I want to know, what do you think of this list? Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There is a link to that down there as well. I have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. A link to my Amazon wish list is down there. A link to my Amazon UK wish list is also down there as well. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Finn Perkins, and Sam Venning. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.